Good afternoon. Thank you again for joining the webinar today. Today we have Ken Weinstein. Ken is an active entrepreneur and real estate developer in the Philadelphia area. He serves as president of Philly Office Retail, which has renovated and restored more than 250 vacant and deteriorated commercial and residential units in the Philadelphia region during the past 29 years. Philly Office Retail currently owns and manages more than 800,000 square feet of commercial and residential space in the Philadelphia region. Ken's mission is to revitalize neighborhoods by renovating vacant, deteriorated properties along Philadelphia's commercial corridors. He believes that you can do well by doing good. We also have Carolyn Placke. She serves as LISC Housing Program Officer and brings more than 15 years of housing and community development experience to this position. Carolyn's work advances LISC's priority housing activities that include home repair, preservation of affordable rental housing, mixed-use development, and equitable development and workforce housing in gentrifying neighborhoods. Prior to joining LISC, Carolyn served as a real estate-owned subcontractor for the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, Senior Grants and Finance Manager for TRF Development Partners, Inc., and Director of Housing and Community Development for Project Home. Carolyn completed her Master's of Arts in Urban Studies from Temple University. Thank you both for joining us, and today I'll turn the presentation over to Ken and Carolyn.
Great. Thanks, Carolyn. This is Ken Weinstein. Carolyn, I assume you'll introduce yourself later?
Yes, when we get to my side of the presentation.
Great. So thank you to everyone for joining us this morning. This is a little bit different for me. I am used to looking at an audience out in front of me when talking about Jumpstart Germantown, but I will do my best today. So thanks for the nice introduction. As Carolyn said, I'm president of Philly Office Retail. I've been a real estate developer for the past 29 years. And what I've learned over time is, as a community developer that's trying to make an impact in the neighborhood, in addition to making money, you have to look at a lot of different aspects. Real estate development, in my mind, is not just about renovating vacant, deteriorated buildings, that you also need to look at the community as a whole and figure out what else is needed. So that leads me to wear a lot of different hats. I'm the owner of Trolley Car Diner, Trolley Car Cafe, and the soon-to-open Trolley Car Station in West Philadelphia. And between the three restaurants, we'll provide about 150 jobs. I also chair the board of PHDC, the Philadelphia Housing Development Corporation, which spends about $30+ million a year on basic systems, home repair, and a couple other programs. And that's significant because we are one of the agencies that are helping keep people in their homes. So we provide grants, usually about $15,000 per house, to low, moderate income people to help them stay in their homes so that they never vacate them homes, and there's no need for programs for Jumpstart Germantown, which then takes vacant properties and renovates them. I also chair the board of the Mount Airy Business Improvement District, which is key because that's yet another strategy to try to strengthen neighborhoods and the commercial corridors in those neighborhoods. Philly Office Retail is busier than ever. There's lots of work for us because there's lots of vacant buildings out there, and as I like to say, I get to retire when all the vacant buildings in Philadelphia have been renovated and are reused. So I think I'll be working at it for quite a while. And I was really pleased that this week Philly Curbed wrote up the top 15 adaptive reuse projects in Philadelphia and named our Wayne Junction revitalization project on the top of their list, which is an effort to renovate 7 properties around the Wayne Junction train station and occupy them with viable businesses that will help serve the community. But of all the hats I wear, There is no hat that makes me more proud than my title as the founder of Jumpstart Germantown, and that's what we're going to be talking about here today. Jumpstart Germantown has far exceeded my expectations. I had no idea 2.5 years ago when we started this program that it would get to the point of where it is today, and I'll tell you more about that. I mean, we really are on a daily basis changing lives and changing neighborhoods, starting with the area in Germantown and around Germantown. So what is Jumpstart Germantown? Jumpstart Germantown is a new model of community development that provides training, mentoring, networking, and financing options for aspiring local developers. I mean, the way this came about was 2.5 years ago, and before, lots of people would call and email me and say, "Hey, Ken, you know, you're doing well at real estate development. I want to do what you're doing. Would you sit down with me and tell me how you got started? And tell me a little about what you do, because I want to do the same thing." So I would spend, everyone wants to pay it forward, and I'm no different. And so you'd sit down with people one by one for an hour, and you would tell them how you got started, and you'd encourage them to get involved in real estate development. At the end of the day, I wasn't helping them a whole lot. I felt like a cheerleader, hey, I did it, you can do it too, go for it. And then they leave the office and maybe they pursue real estate development, maybe they don't. At some point, it was getting 2.5 years ago, it was getting hot and heavy. I mean, I was getting 5-10 of these requests a week, and it was taking a lot of my time. So I said, what happens if I start saying no to people and instead put together a 9-hour curriculum and say to people, don't spend an hour with me, sign up, let me put you through a 9-hour training program, which will not give you everything you need to know about real estate development, but will give you a mentor at the end of the 9-hour training program that can really get you started. And then the other complaint I heard, besides lack of experience, was lack of financial resources. I'm a newbie developer, banks aren't going to loan me money, so we put together a loan program a few months later, which has really taken off. So I'm going to talk more about that. What does Jumpstart do? Jumpstart creates opportunities for local residents to invest and develop in their neighborhoods. So we're really trying to keep real estate local. It's not exclusive. We welcome outside money. But if we can get local residents to develop locally and keep their wealth local, then that's one way to keep gentrification at bay. Secondly, we remove blight and vacant deteriorated properties. That's really my passion. If people say, what do you love to do? I love to get rid of blight. I love to see vacant junk buildings, whether it's residential or commercial, get them developed and get them into people's hands so they can properly maintain them. Again, build wealth locally, helping people create nest eggs. I tell my Jumpstart people, there's nothing to be embarrassed about. The pursuit of better financial conditions for you and your family is a noble effort. And if you can get involved in real estate development and therefore send your kids to college and maybe take a vacation, then that's a good thing for you, and you should do that. We support scattered site rehab as opposed to urban renewal because, again, that's a great way to keep gentrification at bay. I grew up in the 1970s when urban renewal was a real thing, and government was knocking down whole blocks of area and building new from scratch. Well, they were hurting the fabric of a neighborhood, and they were changing the neighborhood too quickly. So Jumpstart Germantown believes very much in scattered site rehab as opposed to the urban renewal. We encourage a healthy mix of affordable and market rate housing, rentals for sales, owner-occupied. Every neighborhood needs a mix of rentals, homeowners, and property flips to make it a viable community. And last but not least, actually I have a couple more. Improving neighborhood safety and raising property value. We help first-time investors become more attractive to traditional lenders. So if we provide them a loan on their first couple properties, they should be able to go to banks going forward after that once they have experience and a couple projects under their belt. And last but not least, increasing diversity, changing the face of real estate development in a very white male industry. I don't know how many real estate meetings I've been to, 95% of the room are white and male, and if we don't change who's doing real estate development, then there will be more gentrification than ever, and people won't care as much about the communities that they're investing in. And we want to make all this happen, as I keep alluding to, with little or less gentrification. We're not going to be able to remove gentrification because there will always be some gentrifying pressures when you renovate vacant properties and improve a neighborhood. But let me tell you how we see that this could be done. So there's 3 Jumpstart Germantown initiatives. The first is the training program, second is the developers network, and the third is the loan program. Again, we figured out what aspiring developers were missing, particularly experience and financial resources, and we set out to give it to them. So let me go through each of these initiatives separately. So the first is the training program. The objectives of the training program, again, are removing blight, revitalizing neighborhoods, changing the face of development, and helping people create a nest egg. And we have done this, we did update this slide, good. We've done this by putting together a 9-hour curriculum that you can find if you go to gojumpstart.org. That's gojumpstart.org. Carolyn's going to talk a little more about it. And we go through what we call the 7 jump steps of real estate development. And again, we're not going to make a real estate developer in 9 hours, but you know what? This is 9 hours more than me and a lot of the other mentors in the program had before we got started. So we hope to save people who are going through the program from making some of the mistakes that we made, and therefore hopefully they can get up and going more quickly than we did. But at the end of the 9 hours of training, we offer them access to a mentor after graduation that can walk them through their first, second, or third project and really get them going. So to date, we've had 233 graduates go through the program, but we, as of this morning, we actually have 574 have applied for the program. So we're about 250 behind, and we hope to catch up on those shortly. We do 4 sessions a year in the training program, and we do it over 3 Wednesdays in a row, 3 hours per session. In the past, we have done 20 people per session, but with 250 on our waiting list and very anxious to get going, we were able recently to get some lecture hall space from LaSalle University, and now we can do 60 people per session. So looking forward to doing that. Our next session starts in early March. So the Developers Network, we started this about 2 years ago. We meet 4 times a year, and we've had anywhere from 100 to 225 people go through these sessions. We try to come up with interesting speakers. We've had Derek Green and Alan Dom, who were 2 city council members in Philadelphia, talk about public policy, and Alan also talked about his real estate activities because he's very active in real estate. We've had Eagles player Brendan Baer talk about tackling your fears, and that was kind of cool. Ryan Spack, who's a local expert in sourcing properties, spoke about creative ways he's used for sourcing properties. And we have a sponsor for each of these sessions who buys all of the attendees dinner. So that certainly helps our attendance. But the last session we had was actually what I called Jumpstart Germantown All-Stars, which was a group of 4 people who have gone through the program who have already quit their day jobs and gone full-time with real estate development, and we had 225 people attend that one. Some things, what the Developers Networks is really about, because it's bringing the community together with contractors and experienced real estate developers and the aspiring real estate developers going through the program, is we're trying to grow the pie by sharing resources. About 80% of people in real estate development don't talk about what they do. They don't compare notes. They believe that you should fight over a piece of the fixed pie. What we believe is that by sharing resources, sharing information, we can grow the pie, and there's more than enough work for everybody. The other objective of the Developers Network is we're creating momentum by creating a buzz. We're hearing from people around the city that, hey, there's something going on in Germantown. And this is something that can clearly be done in other neighborhoods. Just by starting a program like this, it's going to lead to more investment money in your neighborhood. And thirdly, we're encouraging development by connecting investors with the community and each other. What we're trying to do is promote good communication, because again, a lot of developers don't talk to the community and don't talk to each other. So we really want to change that by connecting them with each other through this Developers Network. The other part of the Developers Network, which is really cool and you should check it out, is we have a Jumpstart Germantown Facebook page. This is a page that's used on a daily basis to share resources. Hey, I have this good tenant, but I don't have any space for them. Can you use them? Does anyone have a good masonry contractor? So they're just sharing resources and sharing information about real estate development and how people can do it better. Last but not least, and probably the most powerful part of Jumpstart Germantown, is the loan program. We have to date closed 62 loans. I actually think that's 64 now. And we've committed $6.4 million to this program just in the last 2 years. We have $3.7 million out on the streets at this time, so it's well beyond the $2 million that we thought we would invest. So demand for the loan program has been better than ever. What we're trying to do is provide loans to aspiring developers and experienced developers who can't get them from the banks. The banks don't want to lend to and I say this because I'm one of the founders and original directors of Valley Green Bank, so I got a sense of what it means to sit on the other side of the table. But banks don't want to loan to newbie developers. Banks don't want to do relatively small loans of about $100,000 each. And banks don't want to do what they consider messy loans, which is construction and acquisition loans, which require draws and take a lot more transaction time. Banks do want to provide loans for stabilized. So we want to get people in our program through the part that banks don't want to do, let them stabilize the property, and then they can go out and get their own financing and take us out. So these loans are meant to be for relatively small periods of time, about 9 months. Again, we're trying to remove the financial barriers for aspiring developers. And by providing this loan program, we're trying to focus development on Germantown and the neighborhoods surrounding Germantown. So the loan program applies to Germantown and everything around Germantown, so Mount Airy, Oak Lane, Logan, East Falls, and Nicetown, Tioga. And the reason for that is we don't want to create too much competition in Germantown and heat up the real estate market too much. Again, that would lead to gentrification, as it does in some of the hot neighborhoods around Center City, Philadelphia. So it's been very carefully designed. We have a great team that administers this loan program. And by the way, the loan program does make money, and that helps pay off or pay for the training program, which is offered free of charge. So the Jumpstart philosophy, doing well by doing good, it really is the same as the philosophy for Philly office retail, so it's very consistent. I got out of residential real estate development about 15 years ago. So one, it's been interesting to sort of get back into it, but two is I'm able to provide positive impact on residential areas in Germantown and around Germantown without having to do it myself. So it's been very satisfying. Improving the community, reducing blight, again, trying to grow the pie and share resources. This is all stuff that I've done with Philly office retail from the beginning, and now we're able to share with a whole new group of aspiring developers. Gaining community support. This is key because most developers don't see the upside of working with the community. It really is a marketing advantage by being a good neighbor. One is you have neighbors provide 24/7 eyes and ears on your project, which is invaluable. But you also, when you eventually go to sell or lease your property, neighbors want to choose their neighbors. So they're going to want to be involved. They're going to be your marketing arm when you get to it. Again, creating a nest egg that we talked about, and also changing the face of development. So these are the things, the philosophy of Jumpstart that continue today. Three quick success stories. One is Josh Jones. He's a graduate of our training program. He's already taken out 4 loans from Jumpstart Germantown. He grew up in Brewerytown, so he has been focusing some there without Jumpstart loans. But he's done several properties already in Germantown and has just really taken off. He's testified in front of City Council about Jumpstart Germantown, referred a lot of other people to the program, but he is clearly one of our success stories. Gabriella and Oliver Somoza, who are actually a brother-sister team. Gabriella went through the Jumpstart program. They have also done 5 loans with us so far, 4 of them on one street. So they took the 4 vacant properties on that street of Rubicam in Germantown, renovated them, and that street is stronger than ever. They're kind of interesting because they specifically moved here from New York to invest in Germantown. They were able to see that their dollars could not go as far with New York real estate, and so they were looking for a new community, heard about our program, and moved themselves to Germantown, and that's where they're working now. Walt King, who's on his first project with us, but it's the largest project that we have out there in terms of loans. He borrowed for $530,000 from us. He went through our training program, and he's doing a mixed-use property where he has already leased space for co-working, for coffee shop, coffee roasting, and 3 apartments. So he's making a major impact in the middle of Germantown where he's developing. All 3 of these have quit their day jobs. All 3 of these people have quit their day jobs to focus on real estate full-time. So it's really been life-changing for them. So thank you so much for listening today, hearing more about Jumpstart Germantown, for letting me share my passion. And also thanks to LISC and the Barrow Foundation for giving me the opportunity to tell my story and hopefully, with your help, expand Jumpstart's impact.
Great. Thanks, Ken. I'm Carolyn Placke, the Program Officer for LISC, and we're absolutely thrilled that so many folks have registered for today's session. We do see a couple of questions coming through, and I think what we'll do is I'll run through my section of the presentation, and then we can begin to get to questions. One thing I did want to mention is for folks that are not familiar with LISC, we're a national community development finance organization, and we've invested more than $17 billion in 30 cities across the United States since 1980. We do this by combining corporate, government, and philanthropic resources that assist community-based, locally based organizations to help revitalize underserved neighborhoods. And we do this basically by working very directly with our community partners with a planned intent to strengthen neighborhoods and improve the lives of residents. Building off of that, about a year ago, starting in 2017, LISC was approached by Philly Office Retail and the Barra Foundation with a really interesting project, and that was to document Ken's Jumpstart Germantown model with the idea that it could be expanded and developed and replicated in other neighborhoods, not just in Philadelphia, but in other cities and towns across the country, with the idea being very specifically that they could develop real estate in a very thoughtful and strategic manner. So I'm extremely excited to present the training materials that we've been able to develop and also announce the expansion of Jumpstart into 3 Philadelphia neighborhoods. And if I can get my slide to switch. Sorry about that. Like Ken, I'm just getting into the webinar presentation. There are several components to Jumpstart, but what we decided was we needed to provide folks with a how-to guide, how they can learn about Jumpstart, and some of the critical things to be thinking about as you take on a Jumpstart program. So we developed a how-to guide which serves as a primer for organizations interested in launching a Jumpstart program in their neighborhood. And the guide really presents very clear steps on how to plan and implement a Jumpstart program. One of the things that Ken and the folks here at LISC thought was very, very important was really to help people think about what's going to go into planning and developing a Jumpstart program. And we came up with basically 3 questions. And I underscore this with everybody because we want folks that take this on to think very thoughtfully and intentionally about whether or not they're prepared to actually take on a Jumpstart program. So we asked folks, do you have the guiding principles? And those are the principles that Ken explained early on in the presentation. Do you have those principles for community investment and strategically planning real estate development? And those goals are doing well by doing good, thinking about a healthy mix of housing options in your community. Are you committed to engaging the larger community? And that really means informing other neighborhood residents about the Jumpstart program, seeking their input. Do they support and value a Jumpstart program in the neighborhood? And then most importantly, or equally importantly I should say, is thinking very clearly about the staff and volunteer time that it will take to actually take on a Jumpstart program. These are the types of questions and sort of steps that we provide in the how-to guide to help not only organizations but also individuals think about whether or not they want to take on a Jumpstart program. And what I will say is the how-to guide and the training guide, they can either be used as an individual or as an organization that's interested in expanding a Jumpstart program. And then the next guide is a training guide. And this essentially is the beginning or the basics that groups or individuals will need to think about as they take on residential real estate development. Sorry, I'm having a little difficulty with this. One of the things that's really great about the training guide is it walks through all of the 7 Jumpstart steps, but it also is broken down into the various sessions that either a trainer would need to think about as they're rolling out a Jumpstart program in their neighborhood. And I do like to underscore what those 7 jump steps are, because this will give you a pretty comprehensive overview as to what the training guide entails. And that is, it will walk through creating a development strategy, identifying what your development team looks like, how to identify and source properties in your community, how to think about doing your due diligence, and figuring out financial feasibility for your project. It also begins to give folks insight into designing the design development process and how to identify a reliable construction team, And then at the back end, thinking about how you want to lease or sell and manage your property. So it really kind of runs folks through from the very beginning, conceptualizing what it is that you want to develop, and then at the very end, the types of things that you're going to want to be thinking about as you either sell or rent your property. And as I mentioned early on, the beauty of Jumpstart is that either individuals can take this on or organizations themselves. So we also developed as a companion to the training book a Jumpstart PowerPoint or slide deck. And what goes on here is if you're a trainer, we've put together PowerPoint slides that can be used during each of the Jumpstart sessions. As Ken mentioned, typically they're 3 sessions, a total of 9 hours. And the idea here is it's just a learning tool. So as Jumpstart presenters or trainers begin to invite local developers into the process, this becomes a training mechanism as well as a visual learning tool for participants. We do like to call the participants mentees. And all of these training materials, again, the how-to guide, the training book, as well as access to other neighborhoods that are rolling out Jumpstart programs in their neighborhood, are available through the Jumpstart website. And as Ken mentioned, www.gojumpstart.org is the host website. It's chock full of great information. It also is a wonderful way to connect folks who are actually doing good in their neighborhoods. It's sort of become a hub or a community of self-starters as well as trainers. And as I mentioned at the beginning, we're extremely excited at the amount of interest in Jumpstart. And we were fortunate enough at the beginning of January to offer some small seed grants to local neighborhoods. And we're very, very excited to announce that the Hunting Park Community Revitalization Corporation, the Enterprise Center CDC, and Southwest Community Development Corporation are going to be rolling out Jumpstart programs in their neighborhoods. So again, big congratulations to the local groups, but also to Ken for putting together such an amazing opportunity for folks to learn about real estate development and improve their neighborhoods. One of the things that we do like to encourage is that if you're interested in starting the Jumpstart program, all of the information and all of the tools, even connecting to individuals, there's an opportunity to sort of ask questions as to how to get your Jumpstart program rolling, are all available on the Jumpstart website. And we really encourage folks that are interested in this to visit that website, download all of the training materials. All of this is available and open to the public. And there's also some contact information. So if you have questions, you can connect to the Philly office retail staff in order to ask questions and get answers. With that, it looks like a bunch of questions are rolling in. And Ken, do you want to start answering them?
I have been typing answers, so hopefully those are going through, but happy to. Are we supposed to verbally answer these, or?
No, I thought I saw one in there was a little bit more on the how the loan program was funded.
Yeah, maybe it didn't come through, but I did type response to everybody. But
okay.
Let me, with the assumption they're not going through, I will go ahead and start answering these questions. Jen was asking, where does the capital come from for the loan program? For Jumpstart Germantown, the capital has come through a personal line of credit. But that being said, now that we've proven that the loan program works and works effectively, there are other entities that are lining up to help support future Jumpstart programs with their loan programs. Jumpstart Kensington, for example, was able to get a $2 million line of credit from the reinvestment fund, and some of the new programs that hopefully Jumpstart programs that'll start in 2018 have already received offers of funding also. So funding is out there, and we're happy to work with you if you want to start a loan program to find appropriate funding. What is the cost? Alicia was asking about the cost of the training program. There is no cost to the training program. We have purposely made it for free because we don't want to be compared to some of these get-quick-rich schemes that are out there, and so there's really no agenda behind the training program, so we offer that for free. Arlisha was also asking about how to be involved in the Jumpstart Germantown program because her husband grew up on East High Street in Germantown, which is very cool. Anyone interested in specifically Jumpstart Germantown, you can go to the Philly Office Retail website, phillyofficeretail.com, and click on Jumpstart Germantown. All of our applications and information about the program is there. If you're interested in Jumpstart in general, you should go to gojumpstart.org, which has the how-to guide and has the workbook and has just a lot of other information about Jumpstart and how to get going. Jamar was asking about the how-to guide. Again, you want to go to gojumpstart.org to take a look at that guide, and it's downloadable. All of our information is open source, so we encourage you to use it, to duplicate it, to do whatever you want with it other than change it. Julie is asking, are there any strategies that you have used to address real estate in neighborhoods where investment needed exceeds market value? I will admit that that is a difficult situation with Jumpstart, and you'll see this in the beginning of your how-to guide if you take a look at it. It basically, the first thing we go through in the how-to guide is how to identify a neighborhood and how do you know it's good for Jumpstart. Really what we're working with a little more is the middle neighborhoods that are struggling but that there's sufficient market value. So Jumpstart doesn't work very well in the hot neighborhoods because it doesn't need a Jumpstart program unless it's being done by a community group that's trying to slow gentrification down. The hot neighborhoods don't work. Similarly, the badly deteriorated neighborhoods are also going to have a problem because if there's not enough market value, for example, if you buy and rehab a vacant deteriorated house and you can't get enough rent or to justify the improvements you're putting in, or even worse, things are just not renting in that neighborhood, it's going to be hard because you're not going to be able to attract the financing you need to do the renovation on the building. So really the Jumpstart program is the neighborhoods in the middle of those two extremes. And at least in Philadelphia, it's probably half the city would be a good place to do a Jumpstart program. But every community, every city is different. If anyone has particular questions about their community and whether I think it would work, I'm happy to take a look at those neighborhoods. Other questions? Alex is asking, what are the 3 neighborhoods? Carolyn, you want
Alex,
to answer those?
Sure. Yeah, Alex, we recently announced at the beginning of January 3 neighborhoods in Philadelphia: Hunting Park Community Revitalization, which is in North Philly; Southwest CDC, which is in Southwest Philadelphia; and then also the Enterprise Center, CDC, has done a collaboration with Philadelphia's Promise Zone. So that's a really interesting collaboration out in West Philly. So we're really looking at 3 different geographies. Folks are just getting started on planning for their Jumpstart programs, and we'll probably have a little bit more information on how those are rolling out about the middle of the year.
And Carolyn doesn't know this, but I'm teaching a class right now at University of Pennsylvania on how to do development and empower communities. And we're focusing a lot on Jumpstart Germantown as an example. But the assignment for the class is they've been divided into 3, and each group is looking at one of those 3 neighborhoods and doing some analysis that I hope to share with those neighborhoods down the road. Matthew wants to know if we can provide this slide deck via email. Carolyn, do you know about that?
We'll be recording the webinar and we'll send it out, and then we can also attach the slides to that as well.
Great. Robin Miller, thank you. You said you can see the answers, and Robin is looking at starting a Jumpstart program in a neighborhood in North Philadelphia, so we look forward to working with you on that. Jamar is asking, how would a municipality get behind this program, say Reading or Chester, which are clearly 2 good neighborhoods or municipalities to start Jumpstart? I know both are struggling neighborhoods, but I know that there is a market for people who want to live there. Municipalities could provide the funding for the loan program, potentially. Municipalities could identify, either do it themselves or more likely identify a community development corporation that should head up the Jumpstart program in their community. And certainly, last but not least, is just publicize the efforts of somebody who is trying to start a Jumpstart program. The benefit that we've had with Jumpstart Germantown is I've had to do no planned publicity and no recruiting for our training program because we have received so much earned media over time. So that's certainly a place where municipality can help. Jamar is also asked, does it require individual entrepreneurship, or can it be steered by a small city housing or economic development department? Yeah, that's a very good question. And you'll see also in the beginning of how-to guide who should head up a Jumpstart program. So Jumpstart Germantown obviously was headed up by an individual entrepreneur. Jumpstart Kensington, differently, is being headed up by 2 community development corporations and a real estate developer that's very similar to Philly office retail. But there's a lot of scenarios, and absolutely, it could be headed up by a small city housing or economic development department. My only warning there is that obviously when government's involved, there's always more strings attached to funding and how things work. So I encourage you, if you're going to go in that direction, to try to get funding for the program that has little to no strings attached so you can just move forward. Darnetta is asking, do you think the conservatorship program is a way to obtain housing? And the answer is absolutely. I'm going through the conservatorship program right now for the first time, so I'm learning a lot about it. I don't particularly call it a Jumpstart program, but Mount Airy USA, which is a community right next to Germantown, has already taken this tact and is trying to help people who have gone through my Jumpstart program who live in Mount Airy, which is about 35, 40 people, and help them obtain properties through conservatorship in particularly East Mount Airy. So I think that's an excellent way. What you learn in Jumpstart is sourcing properties is by far the most difficult part of the development process. So if a CDC or a government or whoever can help people obtain properties, that goes a long way to getting real estate developers, aspiring real estate developers, going in the industry. Darnetta is also Okay, Darnett is making a comment. I'm in Brewerytown, Sharswood area, and we need to help slow down gentrification. So it's different than what we're doing in Germantown because, yes, we're trying to keep gentrification at bay, but we also need a lot of investment money. Brewerytown and Sharswood, particularly Brewerytown, is in a very different situation, and they have development going pretty wild there. So, for example, one way to use the Jumpstart program in a place like Brewerytown to slow down gentrification is by putting some more strings maybe on the loan program. As an example, and I sort of did this as a favor, and I hate to mention this, but someone came to me from Brewerytown and said, I want to knock down this 2-story building and build a new 4-story structure, which is a lot of what we're seeing in Brewerytown. Would you finance that? I said, well, first of all, I'm not looking to finance anything in Brewerytown. And then I called him back a couple days later and I said, tell you what, if you do the right thing by not knocking it down and just rehabbing what's there and keeping the fabric of the community intact, I will finance that property. And he did it. We financed that property, and it's under renovation right now. And so we're hoping that the good comes out of that. But that gives you a specific idea on how to have strings attached to the loan program. Maggie is asking, is there any momentum to expand this program to neighborhoods in Montgomery County like Norristown or Pottstown? The answer is yeah, that's what we're talking about today. We would love to have participation from Norristown, Pottstown. I have a number of investments in Norristown, so I know it well. But what it's going to take, Maggie, is someone like you or somebody else in those communities to agree to honcho the effort, because we're not looking to come in and do something to start another Jumpstart program in those communities. It needs to be locally led. So hopefully you or somebody else is willing to take that on. But I think those are 2 great communities to invest in. Alex is asking, how does Jumpstart Kensington fit into all this? Well, they're our guinea pig. They're our first expansion Jumpstart program, and they are going at it and got a slow start, but they're getting going. And I'm hoping personally that we have 5 more Jumpstart programs start in 2018. Betsy is asking, when's the next training program? The next training program for us is in March. So if you're interested in applying, I can't guarantee we can get you into the next one. Although if you're looking to start a Jumpstart program, we are letting other neighborhoods audit our program, our training program, to see how it all works so that they're better able to start their training program in their own neighborhood. Darnetta is asking, when will you have another webinar like this for the public? And that's a good question. Carolyn and I have done this speaking engagement several times at the Pennsylvania Housing Alliance. We're hopefully going to do this in late June at PACDC. I don't have anything else planned for this, but we welcome the opportunity to let more people know. Robin Miller is asking, the guide talks about the entrepreneur needing to work with a nonprofit as a fiscal partner. How does that collaborative work? What is the nonprofit's role? Robin, there's no one way of setting up a Jumpstart program, so it sort of needs to be negotiated. Happy to talk to you a little more offline about how that might work. But it's not, there's no one way to do it. Like I said, I got Jumpstart Germantown going on my own without a nonprofit involved. So a nonprofit doesn't have to be a fiscal agent. And I think like any partnership, you want to have long talks ahead of time about who's going to do what and how it's all going to get done. And when you don't do that, partnerships tend to not work very well. So if you, as an entrepreneur, are going to work with a CDC, sit down for hours at a time and talk about, okay, who's going to do this, who's going to do that, and just make sure everyone's roles are clear, who's going to control the bank account, so on. And Darnetta is Thank you, Darnett. I appreciate that. Darnett says the webinar was awesome, and thanks for sharing this information. And we've enjoyed presenting it. So I don't know if anyone else has other questions, but those were all very good questions.
Hi, Ken. There was one question that said, do you recommend someone getting a real estate license, or is it not needed?
Yeah, thank you for going back to that. I did answer that, and I guess it didn't come through. In the Jumpstart training program, it's just a little piece of it, but I do advocate and recommend that people go for their real estate license, and then similarly I tell them not to use it. Because by going for your real estate license, it gives you a lot of information that you will find useful in the real estate development process. It's certainly not required, but it was a good background for me when I got it 20 years ago. That being said, I used my real estate license for about a year, year and a half, found out it got in the way, because if you want to acquire properties, I'm happy to pay a broker to do that. If I show up as a real estate salesperson, the broker may not want to share the commission with me, and therefore he or she may not want me to buy the property. So I just found it got in the way if you want to be a successful real estate developer.
Great. And we have a few minutes left before 1 o'clock, so if anybody has any additional questions, you can type them in, or you can press *7 to unmute yourself and ask your question. Well, if there's no more questions, thank you, Ken and Carolyn, so much for presenting today. It was really informative, and we'll be sending out the webinar early next week, and additionally, all the additional information that was provided today. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Yep.
Thanks. If I could just add that if anyone would like to contact me, I'm at ken@phillyofficeretail.com. You can also find my contact information on the gojumpstart.org website. So if anyone has specific questions on how to be involved, how to start their own Jumpstart program, more than happy to work with them.
And then there was just one more question about what time the classes are.
Classes for Jumpstart Germantown are Wednesdays from 2 to 5 p.m.
Great. All right, well, thank you, everyone, for joining, and thank you, Ken and Carolyn, for presenting, and everyone have a great weekend.
Great. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.